Welcome to Mentor Time, everybody. I'm excited about today's topic because it's an unusual one, at least it was for me. A few weeks ago, I saw this in someone's newsletter, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what that is. And I checked it out a little bit and wondered why I'd never heard of it. So, a lot of times, topics like this come up because someone's talking about it, and then I discover it's been around for a while. I'm going to ask you to take a Slido poll and tell me, unless it's easier for you to just do it in the chat. Why don't we do it in the chat since there's only 3 of you, unless you don't want to share your name? I just want to know, before you got the email about this, had you heard of the curiosity gap? I'm mostly wondering if you heard those 2 words, curiosity gap. I can tell you, before this came up, I had never heard about it. Maybe people don't care about it. No, thank you, Nada. Ala, no. Priscilla, maybe. Good. You were way ahead of me then. All right, we'll skip over the Slido poll. And that's the other slide. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about what it is. And then I want to talk about why it works, not why it's important, but an interesting framework I thought was important for you all to know about. And also always on these calls, we end with what should you do, which is my chance to help you find actionable ways to take it forward. So we have to go back to 1994. This came out then. And it's a gap between what you know and information you wish you knew or didn't even know you didn't know until something came up. And it was called the information gap, which I had heard about as I was reading my Google literature review that I do for this. Interestingly enough, this gap drives curiosity because it creates tension about something we may be interested in when we become aware of it and we want to know more. But at the bottom, you can see in the bottom left, I didn't realize that this actually was to facilitate learning for all of us, which of course it makes sense. Like, have you ever gone down a rabbit hole? You go to look for one thing on Wikipedia and suddenly you're on 8 different websites? I have, not just for this, but for a lot of things. The theory's evolved, or let me just say the use of the theory, I guess I should retitle this, has evolved. It's still the difference between what we know and what we want or even need to know. But I've discovered over the last decade, it seems about a decade maybe, marketers have taken advantage of this. And this is not just, oh, how to get clicks or eyeballs. This is really using what you'll hear about in the second part, the 5 dimensions of curiosity, the curiosity gap. And marketers now are not going and satisfying their information needs quickly for us. They're trying to delay us as long as possible on making sure that we can stay on whatever they want to tell us. Maybe it's all the text in an email or a short video or something like that. I'm sorry, Ron's not here today, so I'm just trying to monitor any flags I'm getting from the waiting room. And what they do is use this to introduce something new. And the first thing is important to me and all of you. We've heard a lot in the last few years about cognitive dissonance. And this is where you hold 2 competing or alternative thoughts in your mind. But they also do this by withholding key information. So they might start in the middle of a story or introduce something new that they think you might not have heard of. And here's an example that they gave in this article. The third one, this is where it all went wrong. Of course, you're going to want to click it. It said part 4, so it looked like it was either a newsletter or a course you're taking. But yeah, I want to know where it went wrong. So what does this mean? They identify 4 ways to use this at work. And I categorize them on the right as the first one is grow more curious, ways that you would ask yourself questions. What don't I know? Then you'd start to identify gaps around you. And they talk about looking at your physical room and whatever. The last two I call actually using it. One is to raise the curiosity and engagement of your audience. And then you could use it with your team to work on tasks, but instead of just, this is the work we have to do, sit back, this is my interpretation of it, and say, what else should we have done before? What else do you think is missing before we get started? Now, there are a subset of people posting on LinkedIn that talk about asking better questions and being more curious. So I think this all goes along with a trend that's been around for a while. So what? I want to ask you, there are 4 actions here. I'd love it if you could put in the chat one of the actions that you think you could do, would like to do to become more curious. And just, there's no right answer. There's all right answers. There's no wrong answers. Because what this does is gives you 4 examples of how you are able to take this forward. So I will put my contribution in here and I'll say this. And I'm going to do more engaging presentations. All right. Anyone else have anything to contribute? How would you take something forward to fill your curiosity gap or try to help people who might be able to benefit from this? So the 5th thing is not an action, but it's just a reminder that it would be good for us to pay attention to things that aren't being mentioned. All right, Priscilla, thank you. One of the things that comes up is what I assume to be true might have changed from the first time I learned about it. I love that. That's so true, isn't it? It really is. We're seeing that front and center. Thank you for sharing that. That was fabulous. While others are completing it, I'll just tell you my slides. Oops, sorry, a slide turned not quick enough. Let's go back. Huh. All right. Let's see if it's in this next section. All right. So why does this work? This is not why is it important. We've discussed where we could see it being important. Todd Kashdan and others took the original work and identified 5 dimensions of what they're calling of curiosity, a model of curiosity. So they're very interesting. When I first read it, I thought, does this really work? I'm not saying they don't. They know a lot more than me, but the first that they call is deprivation sensitivity. And what this is, that's that gap between you know what you know, and then suddenly you have a glimmer of something you don't know, or you need some knowledge. And there's that gap that you want to fill. And it says when you do that, you feel relief. Now, I would think that would be great. They say this type of curiosity doesn't necessarily feel good, but well, that's for them to say. Then they talk about joyous exploration, maybe going down the rabbit hole. For those who are unfamiliar with that term in the US idioms, it means you start searching for one thing or you start getting involved in a task and then you need some information, you go find that. But in the meantime, you're getting more information about something else. It's magnified online, but we all probably did it before we had computers and ever-present information in front of us, seeking more information. But this is realizing the wonders of the world and how much that you could really enjoy this. Social curiosity is what I used to call people watching. I love to do that. I'm endlessly curious about people's stories, how they got to where they are, what they're doing now, what they did before. And I was glad to find, oh, this is part of what the curiosity gap is about. That's the 3rd dimension. Okay, the 4th dimension says stress tolerance. This is where we feel some tension about, gee, I didn't know about this. I told you, I just found out about it a few weeks, a month or 2 ago, in terms of this specific term, even though I then became aware, oh, all right, I realize I've seen parts of it before in other work I'd done years ago. And then the fifth is thrill seeking. When I read this, I thought, oh, this is like the type A plus people that want to jump out of planes in parachutes. But that's apparently part of being curious, and it makes sense. What's really important, why I wanted to talk about it in terms of what's working, is they say that 4 of the 5 dimensions are important to improving work outcomes, but the 2 highlighted in red are the ones that seem to them particularly important. This was a review of information, it wasn't a journal article. But I thought this is really important because to me, those are the 2 dimensions I feel like we often see, the social curiosity and then the stress tolerance as we're trying to learn new things. Thank you, Nada, for your comment. All right, so what should you do? I have 4 actions for you. First, become more aware of how this is used. We're all interested and know that we're being manipulated in some fashion. When we pick up our phone, when we're on any website, everybody's pop-ups are trying to get us to either stay on it longer or click somewhere. They want our eyeballs and other things. So in LinkedIn, we have the deliberate engagers, and I call these the marketers, who know this theory even if they haven't applied it, even if they haven't learned it, but they're applying it. Molly, I don't know if she wrote this deliberately, because the common wisdom in LinkedIn is you have 3 to 4 lines, and it's usually 3 lines that get shown before you have to click see more. But she's going to get people intrigued because they're talking about LinkedIn math. I know on Threads and Twitter and Instagram, there've been a lot of posts about mom math and dad math, and that is how many hours it takes to do something based on one question from your kid or whatever. You can see you get a little information, and I'm thinking, okay, and what's the including? I want to click more. This man, Jasmine, is a incredible expert at this. He grew his followers by 100K in less than a year. This was a comment on someone else's post that I saw yesterday. And he has this down to a T. You write a line, you put a blank line in, and then you write a little bit more of a hook, but you don't give the basic information away. And I wanted to show you this because this is characteristic of Jasmine. He will use visual cues. In this case, the geography of the real estate is almost exactly a rectangle on its side, or a rectangle anyway. Sometimes he has short sentences at the top going down to longer ones at the bottom. Sometimes he reverses that. This is how he writes all the time. And then there are my colleagues who use it to their best advantage. Are they trying to get us to click see more? In a way, yes, because we value what they're sharing and what they're doing. But that you can see at the top. So Chris wrote food for thought, and then he wrote his main topic, supporting dissemination. And this is the first of 4 or 5 things that he can do, because someone had used a cartoon of his. You can see Holly used it in a post she did that went very well. So he was just saying, I can help you in various ways, and it's not that expensive. And then underneath is Sheila, who talked about, oh, by the way, I'm offering these workshops. So we know, and if we're not interested, we wouldn't click more. I forgot to highlight the see more for her. I looked at it because I'm always interested in what she's doing and where, but you get a pretty complete post, even if you don't read the whole thing. And then the 2 on the right are these are more distant colleagues for me, just people I know from LinkedIn. And so it's clear to me Matt must write a Monday morning quick hit all the time. He's got a check mark, which usually signals if you put something like that at the beginning. I'm thinking, oh, if I opened it, it would have more information in it and maybe a list of actions to do. But I wasn't interested enough, partly because I was busy this morning. And then Tony definitely is using the marketing approach of the curiosity gap. Interview anxiety, what do you, blah, blah, blah. But then we don't get any teaser in there. All right, second action. is that you can fill your gaps. So here's what I'm doing to fill my gaps. I've been tackling AI learning, and one of the most valuable things for me has not been going to websites where they offer a free course, but this man, Paul Couvert, has been sending out a weekly email with actually a lesson in each one. And I take time, these are the two that I'm still working through. The AI features in Copilot was interesting because I'm just learning more about Copilot. But it's been very valuable to me. And when it comes, I don't read it right away. But when I do read it, I try to work through the lesson. So that's how I'm filling, for example, my gaps. Use in making presentations. We heard that was one of the applications. Or use it in your writing or use it in some way. Look how I did it today. I asked you about whether you'd heard it when we started. I asked you how you might apply it when we were done talking about the ways that the examples that were given by the post I used about how you can apply these marketing principles. And you can use it with team tasks. It would be what gaps are there in task X. Ron and I have a second course called Using Your Professional Presence. We met a few months ago. This isn't Ron's fault. This is me. I haven't had time to do what I said I was going to do to prep us to revise the course. But I went through and I looked at this GIF shows all the curriculum that we give over the 5 modules and began to realize, oh, I see big gaps. So this course and the main professional presence course that some of you have taken, those will be revised in the next 6 to 8 months, especially to incorporate AI related tasks, for example. And that came from that article, which is, I guess I forgot the footer for it. So let me stop there. This was meant to be a shorter rather than longer presentation, and see if anybody has any comments. Thank you for the comment. I'm not comfortable with this kind of marketing. Click to know more. And I understand that can be difficult, but we have to remember that part of click to know more is like in LinkedIn, they can't take the space to show you a long post. It would take up your whole screen and then you might never scroll down. So they're doing it to get us to also engage with our network. Does anybody want to make a comment or ask a question? Please feel free to unmute and ask or say.
I guess I would just respond to the comment from Nada about not being comfortable with that kind of marketing. I'm comfortable if other people use it on me. I'm scrolling through LinkedIn and click to know more. But it feels more gimmicky if I'm using it on other folks. And I think for me, especially living in the research space, I feel like I guess my hesitation is I don't want to oversimplify things that are really nuanced, which is why click to know more usually means read my 3,500 page article, not page, word.
Yeah.
But I'd be interested to hear more from Nada about how she feels about it.
Nada.
You're on mute right now.
What I mean that I'm not comfortable if there is a link and I have to click on it to know the other details. That makes me nervous because if you have something to show me, just write it down. Why I need to click on another link and then open another page? So I don't like this kind of marketing.
Yeah, I love that distinction you made, that getting people to read, but then not giving them the rest of the information till they click to go somewhere else. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. And we all have to do it to some extent if we're writing, contributing, doing anything, whether it's celebrating our 3,500 word article that Priscilla described, or whether we're doing what Chris Lisi talked about, where and how I can provide services like I did for the person that made the post. I think her name was Holly. Then I don't mind. It's just good information. But it was interesting even in finding some examples for those couple pages in this presentation. What I found myself looking at was the way in which some of us, and the two, Chris and Sheila, that I mentioned, they're both evaluators. I've known them for a while. They're not writing, they're writing to gain attention from their audience. They're not writing to do it as a get me more followers so my network's bigger. And I think you can tell that also by the writing style. But it's just very interesting to me to look at the way that marketing has co-opted this theory that was used to facilitate learning and turned it into, this is how we delay gratification and build up that what was that first dimension, the one about we want to satisfy ourselves. Anyway, I don't remember it, but I don't remember the name. But it's really useful for us to take apart things that do affect behavior. It's not going to change probably the way I write posts. I read at least a post a week. Write better hooks. You write a hook, then I write a rehook. Last 2 weeks ago, someone said, you got to write a rehook in the third line. And that's just too prescriptive for me to have to go, this is the first line, this is the second, this is the third. But I don't live as a LinkedIn trainer, so maybe that's why it's not so important to me. Any other comments or thoughts or questions?
Yes, I just want to share what I have done in LinkedIn, because at first I just write post without title, just going directly into what I want to say. But recently I used to write at the beginning of the post the title of the main point of what I will write. I think it's better for marketing or for attracting attention for people.
And do you feel okay with that?
I think it's more clear. If I were them, it's better to have an idea at the beginning of the post, and then I will decide if it's okay for me or not.
It's like your takeaway message, right? This is what I want you to know about. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes sense for sure. Great. Any last thoughts? All right, I'll send these links out. I'm just going to stop here. This is the time that I offer if anybody has a question or a comment that you want to clarify or discuss. This is our open time. All right, then I will say, I don't know where that, oh, I know where that blank screen came from. I know Ron would have enjoyed the discussion today, and he always brings a different dimension to things. We love seeing you all here when you can, and those who catch it in replay, we welcome the fact that you're interested in mentor time and the various topics. So we will see you again in 3 weeks. I'll be traveling for the next 2 through a Monday. So you will get a flag for March 6th, and I've forgotten the topic. I know March 13th is the quarterly update on the changing nature of work, because that's our quarter. So thanks very much. Great to see you all.